Welcome back, guys. Today I want to talk about something that most ROM veterans and competitive players are already familiar with, RMC, which has now been held for 3 seasons across 3 different countries. Before we start, I just want to make it clear that everything I'm about to say is purely my personal opinion. Some people may agree with it, some may not, and that's completely fine. I'll try my best to keep this discussion as neutral as possible without attacking any party, including the developers, because at the end of the day, this is simply my perspective as someone who has been actively involved in the competitive side of ROM. RMC is probably one of the biggest efforts from the ROM developers to finally bridge the massive gap between heavy spenders, normal spenders, and even free-to-play players. And honestly, considering how difficult balancing Ragnarok M has always been, I think they deserve credit for at least attempting it. The tournament uses the FOFP system, which basically allows players to access almost full progression power during the event. That includes deposits, stats, jobs, runes, and even memory progression. In other words, players who normally cannot compete with whales in regular servers suddenly get a real chance to fight on much more equal ground. Of course, there are still some advantages for big spenders, especially when it comes to cards. It's not only about the deposit value anymore, but also the actual card effects and utility they can bring into battle. Some cards simply provide mechanics that are hard to fully replace. But overall, if you ask me, the system already creates around 80 to 90% fairness for the player base, while leaving only a relatively small advantage for whales through card functions and certain collections. Compared to normal ROM PvP, that gap is significantly smaller. Another thing I appreciate is how the tournament organizers and dev team are willing to ban several problematic cards that could completely destroy the competitive balance. Things like the undead card and some alien cards are restricted because they can create unfair situations with very little counterplay. So at least there's an active effort to prevent the competition from becoming too one-sided. For that alone, I think the dev team deserves some appreciation. Creating a healthy competitive environment in a game like ROM is not easy at all, especially when the game itself naturally revolves around progression and spending. But RMC is probably the closest thing we currently have to a balanced competitive mode in ROM Eternal Love. The tournament format itself also feels pretty solid. It uses a double elimination bracket, meaning teams need to lose twice before getting fully eliminated from the competition. That format gives teams a second chance to adapt, recover mentally, and improve throughout the event, instead of immediately going home after one bad series. And on paper, the overall system honestly works quite well. The tournament already has its own loyal player base too. My team and I have been regular participants for several seasons now, and thankfully we've consistently managed to maintain our second place position. Of course, our main goal has always been trying to push beyond that and challenge for first place. But for now, we're still chasing that final step. What makes RMC special? The atmosphere is something different. RMC doesn't feel like a tournament where people only come to win. In many ways, it also feels like a reunion event for ROM players within each country. Players meet each other again, talk, laugh, discuss builds, share stories, and reconnect after months of only interacting online. That social aspect is something that really separates Ragnarok M Eternal Love from many other Ragnarok games. And for that, huge respect also goes to Missy E and the organizing team behind the scenes. Organizing an event like this across 3 countries and multiple seasons is definitely not easy. There's a massive amount of preparation, coordination, and pressure involved that most players probably never get to see. So honestly, salute to them and the entire team for continuing to make this happen for the community. The tournament itself also keeps evolving every season. Alongside all the updates happening in ROM, RMC slowly creates its own balancing environment and strategic ecosystem. Every new season introduces different possibilities, different team compositions, different counterplays, and even different mind games between players. That's what makes the competition exciting for me personally. You can never fully predict what will happen next season. Sometimes a new patch suddenly changes the entire meta. Sometimes a forgotten class becomes important again because of one adjustment. Sometimes one team discovers a strategy that completely changes how everyone approaches PvP, and honestly, that unpredictability is what keeps the competitive scene alive. At least, that's how it's supposed to work. But despite all the positive things surrounding RMC, there's still one factor that will always shape the system in ROM. The human factor. Players naturally want to win. That competitive instinct exists everywhere. Not only in ROM, every team wants to become stronger, every player wants recognition, and every organization wants to stand at the top. And there's nothing wrong with that. Competition itself is healthy. There are many ways to chase victory properly. Some teams spend countless hours practicing every night. Some constantly scrim against high-level opponents to improve their communication and decision-making. Others spend time researching lineups, studying enemy habits, testing builds, and preparing strategies for every possible matchup. That kind of effort is something I will always respect. Because behind every strong performance, there's usually an unseen process full of sacrifices, stress, and hard work. People often only see the final ranking, but they don't see the months of preparation behind it. One thing that always amazes me in ROM is how far players are willing to go just for the sake of winning. Some teams recruit extremely high-level players to strengthen their roster. Some borrow or rent incredibly stacked IDs from other regions just to compete at the highest level possible in Indonesia. Others completely rebuild their lineup around superstar players in hopes of brute forcing their way through the tournament. And to be fair, some of that is still technically part of the game. In many ways, building the strongest roster possible is also a strategy. Using connections, gathering resources, finding the best players available, all of that can still be considered part of competitive preparation. Because in the end, every team is trying to maximize their chance to win. But at the same time, if things like that continue without proper limits, eventually the competition could slowly return to the same situation. We already see on the main server, the same gap starts appearing again. The same dominant names remain at the top, and little by little, the spirit of balanced competition slowly disappears. So with all of that being said, I still genuinely want to encourage all ROM players to at least try joining this event in the future, because no matter what flaws still exist, RMC is still a really good effort from the developers, and I think that effort deserves appreciation. At the end of the day, the dev team are also human beings. They may not always create the perfect system, and there will always be things that still need improvement, but at the very least, they are trying to create a healthier competitive environment for the community. That alone already means something. So don't let the small negativity from a few greedy or fame-hungry individuals ruin your passion for playing the game. Every competitive scene will always have drama, politics, and people trying to push the limits for victory. That's unavoidable in almost every game. But beyond all of that, there's still a huge part of RMC that is genuinely fun. Things that honestly stay with you much longer than rankings or trophies. And I believe there's still a lot of room for improvement moving forward, not only for the developers and organizers, but also for us as players and as a community. Competitive scenes grow together with the people supporting them, so hopefully RMC can continue evolving into something even better in the future. And for all of you watching this video, come join us in RMC Season 4. Every strong team also started somewhere. Enjoy the experience, let's have fun together, let's create memories, and let's give our best effort once again on the battlefield. I'll see you in the next video.